Welcome to Manila Updates TV. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for more updates. A Russian oil tanker is making headlines around the globe. The ship, loaded with thousands of tons of diesel fuel, is steaming across the Atlantic toward Cuba. Tensions are running high. Former President Donald Trump has issued a strong warning, threatening action if the tanker is allowed to dock and refuel the island nation. The world is watching anxiously as the ship nears Havana's port. The tanker's voyage has become more than just a cargo run. It's now a symbol of a deeper struggle. Cuba is desperate for energy, and Russia is stepping in where other allies have stepped back. The United States, meanwhile, is drawing a red line. The risk of confrontation is real, and the headlines have become a daily drama. This latest headline is not just about one ship. It's about global power, economic survival, and the daily lives of millions of ordinary Cubans. Every hour brings new updates, and every statement from Washington, Moscow, or Havana could tip the balance. As the sun rises over the Caribbean, the world holds its breath. Will the tanker arrive safely, or will international politics ignite a new crisis on Cuba's shores? Cuba, the largest island in the Caribbean, has always had to rely on outside help for its energy needs. For decades, it leaned on partners like the Soviet Union and Venezuela to keep its lights on. Today, with old allies fading, new players are entering the scene. Russia, seeking to strengthen its global influence, sees an opportunity. By sending the oil tanker, Moscow is not just helping Cuba, it's challenging United States sanctions and showing the world it can still be a major player in America's backyard. The United States, under both past and present administrations, continues to apply strict economic pressure on Cuba. Washington's sanctions are designed to limit the resources that reach the Cuban government, especially oil and fuel. The United States sees Russian support as a direct challenge to its policies and interests in the region. This triangle, Cuba, Russia, and the United States, has shaped the current standoff. Each country has its own reasons and risks, and the tanker's journey may change the balance of power in the Caribbean for years to come. Cuba faces an energy crisis that has gone from bad to worse. The island's economy depends heavily on imported fuel. Without regular shipments of oil and diesel, Cuba cannot run its power plants, transport food, or keep hospitals open. Blackouts and rationing have become the new normal. The crisis began with the collapse of Venezuela's oil industry, followed by tighter United States sanctions. Cuba's own oil production is small and not enough to meet its needs. Fuel shortages affect every aspect of life, from public transport to food storage and medical care. Electricity supply is unpredictable. Many neighborhoods go dark for hours or even days at a time. Generators are rare and expensive. Every fuel shipment delayed means more hardship for ordinary people. This energy shortage is not just an economic problem, it is a humanitarian emergency, threatening the health, safety, and well-being of millions of Cubans. For years, Venezuela was Cuba's main source of cheap or free oil. This support was rooted in strong political ties and a shared ideology. But Venezuela's own crisis, economic collapse, corruption, and falling oil production has almost ended this flow. Deliveries have dropped by more than half in just a few years. Mexico, too, once offered occasional support, sending fuel as a gesture of regional solidarity. But rising domestic needs and pressure from the United States have made Mexican shipments rare. Cuba cannot count on these neighbors the way it once did. The sudden drop in fuel has left Cuba scrambling. The government has tried to find new partners, but most countries are unwilling to risk United States penalties. The shortfall cannot be filled by the small amount of oil Cuba produces itself. This breakdown of old alliances is one of the main reasons Cuba now turns to Russia, even though it means facing new political risks and challenges. U.S. sanctions against Cuba are not new, but they have definitely been tightened in recent years. The goal here is to cut off resources and put pressure on the Cuban government to, well, change its political system. These sanctions target banks, shipping companies, and honestly any country or business that helps Cuba buy fuel. Because of these policies, a lot of oil traders and shipping companies just refuse to deal with Cuba. Even ships that aren't owned by U.S. companies are afraid of being blacklisted. Things like insurance, spare parts, and banking services become really difficult or sometimes even impossible to get. The sanctions also have an impact on Cuba's allies. Venezuela and Mexico, for example, risk losing access to U.S. markets if they send fuel to Havana. So, as a result, Cuba's fuel imports have dropped sharply, which has sparked longer and more frequent power cuts. These economic restrictions are a big reason why Russia's decision to send a tanker is so controversial. It's not just about fuel, it's about challenging US power in the region and, testing the limits of global sanctions. The Russian oil tanker named Baltic Star set sail from a Black Sea port loaded with more than 40,000 tons of diesel fuel. Its route takes it through international waters, past Europe, and then across the Atlantic toward Cuba. Satellite trackers show that the ship is moving steadily, but its exact arrival time is being kept secret for security reasons. The journey is full of risks. US Navy ships have actually been spotted nearby, and American officials warn that any ship delivering sanctions could face seizure or even legal action. The Russian crew is staying silent, but Moscow insists the mission is peaceful and legal. Cuban authorities are preparing for the arrival. They've set up extra security at the port and have warned citizens to expect possible delays or disruptions. The fate of this single ship could really determine how millions of Cubans live in the weeks ahead. If the tanker docks safely, it will bring some temporary relief. But if it's blocked, Cuba's crisis could deepen, and the world could see a new flashpoint in East-West tensions. The United States government has issued a stern warning. In a recent speech, Donald Trump declared, "Any attempt by Russia to break our sanctions and deliver oil to the Cuban regime will be met with strong action. America will not tolerate threats in our hemisphere." Cuba's president, Miguel Díaz-Canel, responded defiantly, "We will not be starved into submission. The Cuban people will resist, and we thank our friends who stand by us in times of need," he said in a televised address to the nation. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov dismissed U.S. threats as, quote, "illegal interference." He stated, "Russia acts in accordance with international law. We reject any attempt to dictate who we support and how we trade." These official positions have only raised the stakes. Each side is determined not to back down, making a peaceful solution harder to find. Every word is now weighed for its impact, both at home and abroad. For ordinary Cubans, the political drama is not just a news story, it's a daily struggle. Rolling blackouts leave entire neighborhoods without electricity for hours. Food spoils in warm refrigerators. Public buses run less often, forcing people to walk or bike long distances. Hospitals and schools are hit hard. Medical equipment needs steady power, and teachers try to hold classes in stifling dark rooms. Shops ration basic goods like rice, soap, and cooking oil. Lines for gasoline stretch for blocks, and tempers sometimes flare. Despite these hardships, many Cubans show resilience. Some organize neighborhood meals to share what little food they have. Others use candles and makeshift stoves to get by. But the sense of uncertainty grows with each new blackout. The arrival or absence of the Russian tanker will mean the difference between more suffering and a brief period of relief. For millions, international politics have become a matter of daily survival. The outcome of the Russian tanker's journey will shape more than just Cuba's energy future. If the tanker arrives and unloads its cargo, Russia will have scored a diplomatic victory and shown that US sanctions can be challenged. Cuba will get short-term relief, but may face even harsher sanctions in response. If the ship is blocked or seized, tensions could escalate quickly. Russia might retaliate elsewhere, and Cuba's crisis would deepen. Other countries will watch closely, wondering if the United States will enforce its policies with military force or seek a diplomatic solution. Humanitarian groups warn of worsening conditions on the island. They call for dialogue and for exceptions to sanctions that allow food and fuel to reach ordinary people. Diplomats from Europe and Latin America urge restraint, hoping to prevent another Cold War-style standoff in the Caribbean. In the end, the world faces a choice. Will it allow politics to dictate who gets access to basic needs? Or can leaders find a way to ease human suffering, even amid rising global tensions? The drama of the Russian oil tanker is more than a test of strength between nations. It is a story of a country on the brink, of leaders locked in confrontation, and of ordinary people caught in the middle. The outcome will shape not just Cuba's future, but the rules of world diplomacy for years to come. Every action now carries risks. The arrival of Russian fuel could bring brief relief, but also new dangers. A blockade or escalation might deepen Cuba's suffering and trigger wider conflict. Around the world, governments and citizens watch and wonder, what value do we place on human need versus political power? Whatever happens next, the oil tanker's journey has exposed fragile alliances, hard choices, and the urgent need for solutions that put people first. The world cannot look away from Cuba's crisis. Its outcome will echo far beyond Havana, and remind us all of the high stakes in today's divided world.